Hey guys, welcome back to Patriot Corner. My name is Remington, and today we're going to have a little fun by talking about a pretty awesome gun, and that is the Glock. And kind of give you a little bit of the history, how the gun works, how to use the gun, different parts about the gun, and things like that. That way, if you are a new gun owner or a new to the Glock frame, you'll kind of have a basic understanding of how the Glock works. So before we get into that, if you want to see some upcoming content and you are liking what I'm doing, I'd appreciate if you guys like and subscribe, and don't forget about hitting that notification bell, because that way it'll alert you for any other videos or anything like that that I come out with in the future. Alright guys, well, let's dive in a little bit. So the Glock is just a kind of a phenomenal little gun. Yeah, kind of an ugly little gun, but it's fabulous. It was actually created in 1982 in Austria by Gaston Glock. And a little fun fact about Gaston is he was actually a curtain rod manufacturer, then later turned to knife manufacturer for the Austrian military. And he had never dealt with guns, never created guns, nothing like that. And the Austrian military actually needed a new pistol, and so he decided to try to come up and make one, and he did. It was actually a great, innovative little gun, and you know, he got the military contract for the Austrian military, and then later it moved into the United States, and he got a lot of police forces to come on board with this new type of firearm, and actually still makes just fabulous products till today. It just kind of became an icon, really. So that's a little background on the Glock, and I hope you enjoy that, because it's really an interesting story. So let's grab us a Glock real quick here. Now, Glock initially, the first one he came out with was what this is right here, is a Glock 17. Now, of course, it was the Generation 1. This is a Generation 4, and I believe there's Gen 5s out now. And there's not a whole lot of difference between the generations, outside of kind of ergonomics, really. So it kind of, the internal parts pretty much are the same, and they just fabulous little guns. And the reason it was called the 17 is he actually, Gaston Glock actually had 16 patents already done, and so when he finally patented the Glock 17, he called it the Glock 17. So, and that was originally the 9mm Luger, and all Glock 17s till to this day are 9mm Lugers. And then they came out with variations like the Glock 19 and the Glock 34, which are all 9mm Lugers. The difference is just kind of the barrel length and the you know, pistol grip length. You know, smaller gun, longer gun. You know, Glock 34 is a little longer barrel, kind of more of a competition shooter. Glock 17 has usually what most duty police use. You know, it's kind of an actual duty firearm. And the Glock 19 became more of a concealed carry or a backup gun. And then they also came out with the Glock 19X, which keeps the same size barrel length of the Glock 19, but then actually makes the handle, the pistol grip, longer, so you can put in, you know, larger magazines as well. So the Glock family really came up with a lot of great innovative guns. They didn't just start with the didn't just finish with the 9mm. They came out with a lot of different calibers in Glock. You know, like the Glock 21. You know, they have 45 ACP, they have 380 ACP, 22 long rifle, 40 Smith & Wesson, I think they have 357 SIG, and I believe 10mm, and if I forgot anything, I apologize. Now, something that can be a little confusing with the Glock brand is the modeling of the Glock. So like a Glock 17 is a 9mm, Glock 19 is a 9mm, Glock 34 is a 9mm. The Glock 21, I believe, is a 45 ACP. So Glock 44, 22 long rifle, the correlation of the actual model and the caliber doesn't actually go. So you do want to do a little research, find out what Glock you may have and what the caliber is, or depending on what kind of caliber you want, find out what kind of Glock you might want to get. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and pick up this gun here. And there's a few things that I'm sure just kind of come right out that you might notice about this gun. First maybe of which is there is no external hammer on a Glock. All these Glocks, no matter what caliber, pretty much function the same, if not identically. The external hammer does kind of put a problem out there for some people because you cannot tell if this gun is cocked or not. Now, that's pretty easy to fix. I mean, you should practice, gun safety by, dropping the magazine, and then, you can kind of look down if you barely pull the slide back, and you will be able to see a round if it is in the chamber. So therefore, if it is cocked, or you should clean a gun, clear a gun completely, and then point in a safe direction and pull the trigger. That way, this gun is clean. So, but that is one issue that I actually have with the Glock, is there is no hammer. But that, again, that's preference. The next deal you'll notice is this gun is pretty much made of completely plastic polymer. Now, the slide is steel, but everything else is the first ever to come out with this kind of design. Now, the good thing about the polymer, and there's good and bad things about this, and there always is, you can't ever have perfect, but the good thing about the polymer is it really lightens up the gun. It makes it, drop drastically with weight, and it also helps with concealability, depending on what model you get, versus the older, full steel framed other types of modern-day semi-automatic pistols. Now, one bad thing about the polymer is it won't be as sturdy or as strong than a steel-framed pistol. Now, don't get me wrong, saying that, they are still so incredibly strong. I mean, it's pretty friggin' hard to break one of these suckers. So don't be hesitant in that, but they are a little weaker than a big framed steel pistol. The good thing about the polymer, though, is it really cuts down on your corrosive problem, your rusting aspects, where a steel framed pistol can have that come into effect, especially if you're not cleaning it regularly and stripping it out and stuff like that. Another thing that can cause a problem, not necessarily a problem, but something to be mindful of, because of a Glock's lighter frame, because of the polymer, making it much lighter, easier to carry really, there is a side effect to that. The Glock will have more recoil than its counterpart with a steel frame. So if you're shooting a 9mm Glock and a 9mm steel frame pistol typically will have less recoil than a 9mm Glock. Or like a 1911 45 ACP and a Glock 21 45 ACP, the 1911, because of the weight, will have typically less recoil. Now that all depends if you're trying to keep apples to apples and keeping the same type of length slides and things like that. Now, that being said, there are the Glock actually does have less recoil because of the internals than other counterparts with it that would be made of polymer. So they really, the Glock will have less recoil than another polymer made gun. So just little things to keep in mind and to know how to work. So we're going to go from here into your magazines. Now, typically, your Glocks are primarily a double stack magazine. And what a double stack magazine is basically they stair-step bullets inside the magazine. Now this is a beneficial aspect to the point of view of you will be able to carry more rounds in a magazine and a shorter magazine. Now the problem to that though is it does make your grip a little fatter. You know, like if you look at like a single stack 1911, which the bullets are stacked singly all the way up in its magazine, will have kind of a smaller grip, you know, than a double stack Glock. Now, again, that depends on your caliber. I mean, obviously a 45 ACP is going to be a little bit bigger than a 9mm Luger. Just the size of the round, you need more space to bring them in. Now, I do believe that some Glocks, there are a few Glocks out there that do make, and they're more of a carry gun, concealed gun, that do make a single stack. I don't really know which model that is, but they do have them out there. So now, since we have the magazines, we're talking about magazines here, I do want to take this time to note that in some of my videos, especially beginner videos, you know, like this one, I will use the terminology clip. And the reason I use that is because of Hollywood and you know, people that really haven't been in the firearm world very long have basically known this to be considered a clip. And so I say the term clip just to get everybody on the same page. Now the term clip is actually improper. There are clips out there, but this is not a clip. This is a magazine. A clip actually is like a stripper clip, is used to load or fast load, speed load a magazine, whether it's an internal magazine or a removable magazine like this. And actually the term came about a lot because of after World War II, you know, XGIs that were using the M1 Garand that used stripper clips, the true clip, got used to using the terminology clip for you know, loading their gun and things like that. So when magazines came about, that term just stuck. And then later on, it became kind of rifles had magazines and pistols had clips, and it kind of got skewed over the years and everything. But really, the proper term is all of these things are considered magazines, not clips. There are still clips out there, but these are not them. Now, while we're on this, there's a big debate about how to store and keep your magazines. Now, I know that you're going to want to try to keep some magazines loaded for defensive purposes. It's always nice to have something loaded in case a bad situation arises. But there is widely debated about if keeping a magazine loaded completely full hurts the spring in a magazine. And I've talked to a few gunsmiths and a few mechanical engineers over this matter, and kind of the standard consensus is yes, it does hurt your spring. Over long periods of time, it can hurt your spring and weaken your spring and cause what they call creep, where that could lead to malfunctions and failures to feed. Now, that being said, if you're getting a good, well-made magazine that uses from a company that uses very good steel in their springs, the problem with creep probably will not occur within your lifetime. And if it does, you probably won't notice it. But I do tend to stay on the side of caution when it comes to that. So I go to the range a lot and I shoot a lot, and so I use my loaded magazines when I go to the range, and then when they are emptied out, I will load up a different magazine to keep loaded. That way I'm kind of taking the stress off each magazine as it goes. You know, every 6 months to a year, you know, I move the magazine that's loaded to a different magazine. Now, that being said, also what really does hurt your spring is the constant unloading and reloading or use of a magazine. That does wear your spring out much faster than anything else will. But obviously the best thing for your spring for extreme long periods of time is completely empty. But you know, what's a $20 magazine when it has to do with your life? So you know, keeping a couple loaded, I don't think it's going to be a big problem. Another deal with a lot of people will run into are problems with new magazines, you know, failure to feed. And a lot of people will get past this problem by loading one less than what your actual magazine capacity will hold, and that will get your magazine to break in a bit. And now you have to do this constantly. It's just for the first few sessions your magazine breaks in, and then you can completely load it and have that you know, your full rounds in your magazine. Now Glocks have a lot of different types, or I shouldn't say types, capacity magazines. And a lot of them are interchangeable if they're the same caliber. You know, like you'll get into 10-round magazines, 17-round magazines, 15, 21, 27, 30, 33. I believe there's even some drum clips or drum magazines out there as well for Glock. There also is a few other manufacturers that will make magazines for Glock other than the Glock manufacturer. So you might want to play with that and look into that a bit. That way you know what you might prefer. There might be cheaper magazines out there or a better deal. Now do remember, if you throw a 30-round magazine into your Glock 17, that thing is going to stick out clear out to here. And kind of hard to conceal that or carry that, and but can be fun at the range. Glock actually also makes a fully automatic Glock 18, but unfortunately civilians can't buy that. Something you do want to always keep in mind is certain states will have magazine capacity limits, you know, whether it's 10 or 15, where you cannot buy or sell magazines that have over this limit, or some states you can't even own those magazines. So you do want to be mindful of that so you don't get caught up and get into some problems with your law enforcement. Okay, so next let's pick up this guy, and you will notice something else on this gun, and that is there is no visible external safety like that of what most pistols will have, which is a lever safety. Now, a lot of people don't like this feature. Other people do like this feature a lot because it is a little faster if you're keeping this thing loaded and cocked. Now, that being said, there is 3 safeties on this this firearm. The first one that you can actually see is the trigger safety. Now, there's this little lip, this little lever inside the trigger, and then when you cannot pull this trigger unless you compress that lever. Pulling that lever all the way back then allows your trigger to be pulled all the way back. And it's pretty natural. You don't even realize it when you go to shoot that you are compressing that trigger. Now you also have a secondary trigger, a secondary safety inside, and that is your primer, your firing pin safety. And what that is that actually there's a bar in there that stops your firing pin from being able to hit the primer of your ammunition to make it go off. And that will not be depressed until you pull the trigger. The other safety is a drop safety, and that's in the rear of your gun. And again, that's holding your firing pin back. That way it doesn't accidentally, if you drop your gun on a real hard surface, it won't push that firing pin into the primer of your round, making an accidental discharge. But all 3 of these safeties are kind of limited in one way, and that is it does not stop you from pulling the trigger. Once you pull the trigger, all 3 of these safeties are off. And I know that makes some people feel very uncomfortable, because if you accidentally pull the trigger on this, you will shoot this gun. So that's something to be mindful when you are training and practicing with the Glock, is always keep your finger off the trigger. I mean, that's just good gun safety to start with, but with a Glock, you definitely want to be like that. Just always pull your gun out of your holster or anything with your finger off the trigger, especially if you're keeping it with one in the chamber all the time. Now, cocking your gun, obviously, just like most modern semi-automatic pistols, you pull the slide all the way back and you release it. That pulls a round out of your magazine and throws it into the chamber. Now you are ready to go. Now, obviously, this is a semi-automatic firearm. This is also a all-time double action pistol instead of a single action or a single action double action like some revolvers are, and like an H&K I believe is. And it's not single action like that of a 1911 or your old single 6 revolvers. This is all-time double action, and that's because you don't have your hammer on this. Now it does have your standard slide stop. On most semi-automatics will have a slide stop, and what that is when it goes back like this, it will stick open when your magazine is empty. So there's no more rounds in the gun. This kind of lets you know that you are empty. It also helps with the aspect of you're going to reload, throwing another magazine in the gun real fast. Now once you get to here, you will not have to actually cock it again. You will have these levers that will let you drop your slide. Now, what's cool about a Glock is they are ambidextrous. Most Glocks will have ambidextrous deals. Now, this one does not, so this one just made me a liar. But like this one, the Glock 34, this will have your ambidextrous slide release. You know, and I believe your Gen 5 Glock 19 also has your ambidextrous slide release. And that's also how you can get this gun to stay open without an empty mag. Once you put the empty mag in, it will stay open. Now another way to hit this if you aren't trying to do it with one hand, and is kind to just pull back on your slide like you were cocking and let it go. This will release it, so sometimes that is a little faster if you're doing in a hot situation or you're competing. If you're trying to do it with a one hand, you're going to want to use your slide release levers. But if you don't have an empty mag, you can also get your magazine to, or your slide to stay open by pushing up on that slide release lever. That way it will stick here, and you can, you know, do whatever you need to do with your gun, whether it's clean it or take it off the range, you know, whatever you need to do. Now, you also notice that Glocks will have this little ridge on the front of your gun. That is so you can add like a flashlight or a laser or something like that. It's kind of their form of a way to adapt and put things on to your gun. Now there's also they're pretty easy to in exchange. You can get different barrels for these guns, or they will come with, depending on what model you get and where you get it, the tactical versions will have a threaded barrel, and that is the case so you can put on a flash hider, a muzzle brake, a compensator, or maybe even a suppressor. And so if you don't have a gun currently that has thread barrels and you do want to do this, that's okay. You can actually buy aftermarket thread barrels and throw them into your guns. Pretty easy to do. I will do upcoming videos on that type of deal. Now, of course, you also this is your mag release on your left hand side, your big square button here. This will drop your mag out so you can load it up, throw a different mag in, whatever you need to do. And that's just always something you want to know. Now, something else you're going to look at and wonder is you'll see these two, I guess you would say, slide levers on both sides of this gun right here. Well, what that is that is how you strip your gun. Now, I will do future videos on how to strip apart, take apart your gun, how to clean your gun and clear jams, misfires, things like that. But real quick, this this little slide lever is once you pull your slide back in this fashion, you pull down on this, let your slide go, and then pull the trigger. This releases your slide, and you can pull your slide totally off. And that is how you will end up cleaning your firearm. And you just match up the grooves on here, get it back in, and now you're ready to go. You're good to go, have some fun at the range again. You also will have up on your sights here, you have what is a standard kind of front post and with a little white dot on it, and you'll have the Glock standard U post, back U, with a painted on white U on this. Those are your standard iron sights for this. Now, how you would use these iron sights is depending on how you have it sighted in or on how your gun is. You will either you'll put your front post in the middle of your U here, keeping it level, and then you'll either cover the target or put the target just over the top of your front post, depending on how you, like I said, how you're sighted in or how your gun shoots on its own. Now, some Glocks will have back sights that you can actually move so you can sight in your windage or maybe even your elevation. These sights are also very easy to take off. Once you pull the slide off, there's nuts underneath, and you can then go ahead and throw on kind of whatever sight you want, whether it's tritium or for night sights or a different type of back V, or like on that Glock 17 I had over there, you know, like a gunfighter V, which is very open. It's not nearly as accurate, but it's a lot faster for quick, close situations. You know, you can also put on the fiber optics that kind of glow during the day and help you really see your sights. There's also, depending on the slides you and the model that you get, they will have a special side on the top of this where it has a flat spot, and you can get a aftermarket kit, and that way you can put a reflex or a red dot sight on the top of your gun for, you know, competition, or just make it easier to see, however you want to do that. So you can do that. The Glock is just incredibly versatile. What's just very cool, aftermarket parts that you can actually cross over with the Glock. And what that means is, like, you can make a 19 or a Glock 9mm into a Glock 45 by just replacing the barrel and the magazines. Sometimes you might have to replace the actual slide itself, but you can get these, you know, these aftermarket parts that will actually let you have two different firearms in one. Now, the downside to that is usually those transfer kits are about the same price as another firearm. So in my opinion, I would just like to have two different guns. That way I don't have to take them apart and constantly switch things over. And that way you don't get confused on what magazine you're throwing in, what caliber. What's so amazing, now I'm sure I'm going to catch a lot of hell from people on this, but I've always considered this, the Glock, as the AK-47 of the pistol world. Now, the reason I say that is because Glock made these guns incredibly loose tolerance. What that means is it's not real tight. It's not everything's fit perfect together. In fact, you can actually see daylight when you look through under the slide of most Glocks, and you can see the other side. You see clear through this gun, and it will kind of rattle and everything slightly. Now, what is great about the loose tolerance, and why I say it's like a AK-47, is it just makes these things so dependable. They just grit, and shooting them a lot, sand, mud, things like that, just don't seem to make these guns misfire or jam. They just continuously just keep popping, and that's pretty awesome. Now, unlike an AK-47, despite the loose tolerance, the Glocks are quite accurate, and it's just a great all-around gun. And that's probably why that, you know, a lot of the world's militaries have adopted this gun, and a lot of the world's police forces have adopted this gun, including the United States, and I believe the FBI used to. I'm not sure if they still carry Glocks, but it is an amazing, amazing little gun. Alright, well, that pretty much takes care of the intro kind of tutorial of the Glock. And like I said, I will do future videos on like how do you operate it, how it works, all that other different things. So do stay tuned for that. I also will be doing other videos on AR-15s, AK-47s, and the 1911 on, you know, different attributes, different things to do, and I will be doing reviews and things like that as well. So please stay tuned. Alright guys, well, I hope you're having a good day, and I hope you enjoyed this. So if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright guys, well, I guess I'll see you next time, and keep your powder dry.